Welcome to the first installment of the GU Community Corner. This is a segment where community members or other content creators are invited on so we can discuss a specific video game. Today's installment involves a personal game request by our stream moderator, Raemazing, entitled Anatomy by Kitty Horrorshow. Well, let's go.
In the psychology of the modern civilized human being, it is difficult to overstate the significance of the house. Since as early as the Neolithic era, humankind has defined itself by its buildings. Buildings for worship, buildings for socializing, buildings for protection, even buildings for the commemoration of the dead. But of all the structures that mankind has invented for itself, there is little doubt that the house is that which it relies upon most completely for its continued survival.
Yellow, yellow.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm doing good. What is it? It's Tuesday, right? It's not far enough into the week yet, so not as good as it could be.
Fair. That is fair.
So what's going on your end? School being crazy?
I'm just sitting in the closet to hopefully this will have the right acoustics and we won't be able to hear any trains that pass by my apartment. So
That's always good. Absolutely. It's pretty loud all the time though, from the train tracks?
I mean, not all the time, but they're fairly frequent. I think a train passes by every, 20 minutes. It's less often in the middle of the night, but they still go past in the middle of the night, and they honk, and sometimes it wakes me up.
That sucks. I know where I'm at, they have a noise ordinance where they actually can't honk in a residential area, which is helpful.
Yeah, that would be nice if they do that here, but, nope.
Not at all. Gotcha. Okay, so I think I was telling you, so basically what I want to be doing is have, community requests. I do the play. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually upload the play of it or we'll just do the podcast style, what we're doing right now, discussion of it. But I want to hear back from the individual who recommended it in the first place. I thought that'd be a fun little thing to throw a new flavor into the content.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I definitely like to see the Let's Play.
Oh, I have it. I'm definitely going to be up, I don't know if I'm going to upload it full on the stream channel or what I'm going to do, but I'm definitely going to show it over to you real quick.
Okay.
It's broken up into 4 parts, because after the first time the game logged me out, I was like, okay, what's going on? I wasn't sure what happened. I thought I broke it, so I shut the recording off.
Yeah, it does that. It likes to be spooky.
I don't think the last time I've seen a game do stuff like that was possibly Metal Gear Solid 2, I think, where they had that one section where the game starts reading your save file and starts calling you out on what you played in the past. Just weird shit like that. I don't know if you've played those games.
I haven't, but I do like when games get kind of meta like that. It's fun.
It just freaks you out. But gotcha. Yeah, this game was actually, I didn't know what I was expecting going into because I saw it was a 30-40 minute thing. But after I noticed that things were changing is when I was like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Let's do this. Oh boy. So okay, so I just wanted to let you give a chance to introduce yourself and just tell me something why you like the game and stuff like that, and then we'll get going from there.
All right. My name's Ray. I'm on the Gaming University Discord. I'm one of the stream moderators. I don't know if you're gonna let me carry that over to the new channel, but
oh, you'll get it. No worries about that. You're the censor for life. You got it.
Yes. But yeah, I like anatomy because it's the scariest piece of media I have ever experienced. And that might just be because I have weird phobias, but it's there's the movie Monster House that came out in the 2000s.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I was a kid then. I was probably around 8 or so when it came out. And that movie scared the crap out of me. It's like, what? My house could be alive? I could be inside of something that's, that's alive like that? And that, that always terrified me.
It kind of stuck with you after watching it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think I did watch it, but I kind of hid under a blanket for half of it.
It's funny because, like, yeah, on my end, I think the child movie that freaked me out as a kid, I was probably 5 or 6 years old at the time, and we were over at my sister's friend's place. I ran into her brother's room to get away from it. They were watching Hocus Pocus. And it scared the crap out of me. I don't know why. As an adult, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me?
I mean, kids are scared of the weirdest things.
It's true. It's actually kind of funny considering this is kind of a tangent, but I'm working on it. The lecture I'm working on is for the Threshold kids right now, and the whole idea is what kind of stuff you put into children's movies and how it can have an effect on them when they don't even realize it. Which this is just case in point right here. Monster House and moving into Anatomy here.
Yup. But yeah, I've always had kind of a fear of being eaten alive is a very primal fear, and it's, especially for me, it's like in cartoons, in every kid's cartoon, there's always an episode where they like shrink down and go inside of someone else or something like that. And I always hated those episodes because that.
Just let's skip this episode and come back to the next one. I think I'll be okay.
Yup. Yeah, that was generally me. And then, a few years later, I discovered that I actually really love horror. I mean, there's two demographics that tend to really love horror are the LGBT community and people with anxiety disorders. And I fall under both of those categories, so...
I actually never heard that about anxiety disorders and horror, though. I'll have to look into that. That sounds... I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think it's because it kind of gives you a safe space to be scared in. If that makes sense. You know this stuff won't happen to you, it's happening to the characters, and so you'll be okay, so you can be scared and kind of practice, I guess.
Gotcha. So, for this one, I know you've been requesting it for a long time, since Psychonauts 2, I think, is when you came on board, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you've been asking me for a long time, and I've really been intending to, but now that I'm not really rebranding, but I'm starting a bunch of new types of content, I really wanted to make sure this was the first thing I did, just because I know how long you've been wanting to take a look at it.
Yes, it's like, I mean, it definitely seems right up your alley. I know I've heard it, a lot of people who talk about it will compare it to Control and House of Leaves, which I know you like both of those, so... Absolutely.
Yeah, there's actually a point in the Let's Play portion where I was like, oh, this is a building shift. This is what we should have had in Control, damn it. It's good stuff. But I think you're in art school right now, right?
I am, yes.
Because I remember you were showing some art from the game up in the Discord. The teeth imagery coming over.
Yup. Yeah, I can definitely send that over again. You can absolutely show it in the video.
Sure, yeah, I'll pop it up right now, because I think what I'm going to do for this is I will have scenes from the Let's Play playing in the background while we're doing this, and then I'll probably upload it separately as its own thing as well. But I guess we'll just do a brief recap of what's going on in the story. Now,
the bedroom is perhaps the room that most eludes direct comparison in this fashion. At a stretch, and allowing for a bit of poetic sympathy, it might be said that the bedroom is not unlike the human mind, or those parts of it which dictate thought and imagination. In the bedroom,
I dream that there are teeth growing all over me, everywhere on me and in me, like cysts or bone spurs. They're loose, but I can't remove them because I have no hands. I look out through the bedroom window and I see a truck approaching. A young man steps out, approaches, and enters through the front door. His body is covered in swollen ticks the size of quarters. He's walking through the downstairs hallway and laughing. He begins He's urinating on the wall. He spits on the carpet. He's moving through the first floor, breaking and upsetting things. He goes to the basement and stands at the top of the stairs. I'm angry at him, so I slam the door and he falls down. I can feel his bones snapping. The techs are bursting, oozing all black blood everywhere. I can feel them being ground up, dissolved and torn, splitting and shredding. I leave the door closed. I close my eyes and try to sleep. The teeth continue growing on me until there's nothing left of me but teeth and gums and sinew.
The basement is dark.
Quick question, since you obviously experienced this a lot longer. The female voice, when it popped onto the recording and it was talking about a transient that's wandered into the house, is that supposed to be us as the character? Or just a random character that it experienced?
Well, the voice is generally thought to be the voice of the house itself. The person in the story is unclear. There's a lot of different kind of theories about who or what the player character is, and one of them is that it's the person in the story. I kind of buy into a different one, which we can discuss that now. We can discuss that later.
Yeah, I just wasn't curious. I was just trying to set the tone for who the character was, but I guess at this point it doesn't matter. It's just a random person who wanders in.
Yeah.
At least for the time being.
Maybe it's a bit unclear. This
Gotcha.
game likes its vagary.
And I think that's some of the best parts of it. I don't know if I think you were on the Alan Wake stream, right? Just to make sure.
Parts of it, yeah.
Parts of it, because the very first lines of the game is basically that it's quoting Stephen King about how not having questions answered in these horror stories is what really makes it freaky at the end of the day, because you don't know, you can't really define what's in the shadows, so to speak. It's that imagination aspect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's the trope of nothing is scarier, where one of the versions of it is where basically you never show the monster on screen because the audience's imagination can come up with stuff a lot scarier than anything the effects department can make.
And they do that in pretty much any creature feature that I see. Is the entire film, you never see the creature. Like, you see maybe like a shadow of it or whatever, and it's freaky, but the second they reveal it, you're like, okay, whatever, I'm over it. It's just, I don't know, which I like the analogy in this one regarding the basement of how you fill it with your own horrors.
Oh yeah.
Which is 100% true. 100% true. And I'm going to bring that up when we get to the next Hellblade episode, which is going to be about the trial of darkness, which is the exact same thing. You have to rely on your hearing and the audio design to get through, because you literally can't see anything, but you know there's creatures wandering around in that darkness, but you never see them. It's creepy as hell.
Oh, I bet.
Have you played that one?
I haven't, but that sounds super awesome.
Yeah, it's really short, it's like 8 hours or so. I'm probably going to stream it at some point, but it's one of those where the entire game is designed around trying to showcase someone suffering from psychosis. Ooh. And they intentionally make the audio design where you're like hearing voices that go all around you throughout it, and the visual design, they actually got real people who suffer from schizoaffective disorders and other forms of psychosis to collaborate on the design of visual artwork. It was really cool.
Oh, that is super cool.
But getting past that, let's get back to the point of the game. We're talking about anatomy,
Yeah.
not the rest of it. I tend to get diverged a lot. So we enter a house. It's kind of empty. It's very sparsely decorated. And we just kind of wander around. Most of the doors are locked. We finally make it to the kitchen where we find a recording and a cassette player. And it just starts talking about symbolically what the house represents in the psyche of humanity. Which I immediately just started nerding out 100%, because you know me and my love of symbolisms and archaic forms and stuff like that. But yeah, it's very true. The house at the end of the day is what separates you from the outside world. It's the ultimate representation of taming the wilderness, so to speak. Is it's literally 4 walls that keep you away from the woods and the beasts and everything that's outside the cold, for example. I just really appreciated it. And the structure of the game is you go through, or at least the first act of it, is you go room by room, finding the cassette tapes, and you get more and more of this voice that's describing how every room is analogous of a certain aspect of the human physiology. And I went off on a random rant at this point about like, 'cause I was like thinking like, okay, well, you got the HVAC system, you got the electrical, you got the plumbing here, so I'm thinking of like the AC system, which this house obviously doesn't have. But whatever, because, you know, I work in construction, so I'm a nerd with... I've built a property from soil up to the roofing, and so I'm familiar inside and out, which is why I very much appreciated how the story was structured here. But after that, the game shuts off, which I thought I broke the game, which isn't the case. But then things start getting really weird. Do you want to take it over from there for the Act 2?
Yeah, so Act 2 starts out largely the same. You go into the kitchen, you play the cassette tape. It gives you more or less the same, you know, it says more or less the same thing, and it starts sending you to the same places. But then both the tapes and the text on screen telling you where to go next starts to get distorted, and things strange. You start hearing the voice changes. It starts talking about the house in first person. And yeah, everything, all the doors unlock, everything's just a bit weird and a bit unsettling. Until the game shuts itself off again.
And I was completely clueless. I felt really bad. I'm gonna have to go back through the part of Act 2, because I thought I broke it, so I was gonna speed run the game to get caught back up to where we left off, which I think is the master bedroom, right? That's the first time that it shuts off. Just for anyone, like, basically what happens is the door exiting from the master bedroom just vanishes, and then you have a red light that shows one of the cassette players, so you go there, do that, it shuts off. So I was like, crap, run through. I took my headphones off because I pulled up Netflix on my phone while I'm trying to get caught up, and didn't realize until all the doors unlocked that something was different. And that was just me not knowing what I was getting into, to be perfectly honest. But when we get to Act 3, actually, going backwards, the Act 2 ends, you hear that female voice that's talking about a transient that comes inside the house, kind of starts spitting all over the floor, I think talking about him pissing on the wall or something, breaking things, and something the voice pushes him down into the basement and kind of locks the door and kills him. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it said something about I slammed the door, and it startled him and he falls down the stairs. And that's in first person. I slammed the door.
And immediately after we hear that, the basement opens, we walk in, and we just get shoved down there, and the game ends immediately.
Oh, yeah.
So actually, random question. Has anyone ever wondered if each time you start the game back up, because I think it's 4 separate encounters, right? 4 separate acts, if they're different people or the same person? For example, you're playing one that did get pushed down, you died, and now you're playing someone else that walked in.
Huh. I'd never thought about it.
I don't think that's going to be true. I'm just curious if anyone's mentioned it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'd say the player for Act 3 and 4 are definitely the same, and with something it says a bit later on at the end of Act 3, I think they're all meant to be the same person. Okay,
that's what I figured too. I just spitballing thoughts out there for that. So by the time we enter for Act 3, everything has gone to absolute hell. Like, I think there's like distortions in the lighting. There's like all the doors have been shifted around to the point where they no longer fit inside the openings, or they're below the ground level of the slab. Just stuff like that. That was funny. I was just laughing. I'm like, that shouldn't be there. That's not how doors work.
There's the mirror in the bathroom is rotated 90 degrees, so it's like sticking out of the wall instead of laying against it. There's like there's some veins. There's like a wall that's made of like this pulsating flesh. Oh,
I saw that in the master bedroom, I think, right?
I think so, yeah.
It was just freaking weird. And I think that room also had like a door that opened up into another door, which again just reminds me right out of Control. Have you played that one?
I haven't yet. I own a copy, but I haven't gotten a chance to actually play it yet.
No worries, because that imagery just reminds me of a section. I'm not going to mention it because you'll notice it when you get there, but having the door open up into another door reminds me of a certain section of Control. So the imagery definitely, especially when the TV, you turn the TV set on, and everything just turns red at that point. Again, that exact shade of red is right out of Control. That's the color of the Hiss corruption, so to speak. And you'll know when you get to playing it, or if we stream it first, then you'll know when we get to that as well. But I definitely saw the similarities. But this came out a long... When did this game come out? I think it was like 5-6 years ago?
Something like that.
So yeah, this is definitely older than Control, but the imagery and how the building, the house shifts around is very similar. Very much loved it. Where do we go from there in terms of the story? Things are just nuts. Like, tables are floating in the air, walls are vanishing. You literally see those little threads of flesh all over the place, which ties into, again, the name of the game, which is Anatomy, trying to make an analogy between the rooms of the house, how the hallways are the veins stretching between them, basically comparing it to the anatomy of a human body. Which, that's something I enjoy doing, is just trying to distill something down to its archetypal function. Like a kitchen, yeah, you cook food, but also what is it at the base if you strip everything else away? Like a hallway, it allows things to travel from one room to another, if we try to break it down that way.
Yep, and it's like, they did a really good job on all those analogies. Like, oh yeah, the living room's the heart, the hallways are blood vessels, the bathroom is... Well, that one's pretty obvious.
It's self-explanatory, yeah. I love the game was wise enough not to say, yeah, this is what it is. They're trying to not be too, explicit, should we say. But yeah, so what do you think? The one comparison that I was most trying to meditate on last night when I played this was the comparison between the basement and the bedroom. The bedroom being the conscious mind, and the narrator's opinion that it is more terrifying than what lays in the basement. And I'm trying to wrap my head around what they mean by that. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I don't know. That one's, that one needs a bit more thought. At least on my end. It's, yeah, it's like, I mean, the brain and our thoughts are, they're confusing to say the least.
It's like, how I think of it, obviously the basement is, that symbol is used all over the place. It's not just this game where you travel downwards into the darkness of the unconscious mind. It holds things we're scared of, even though there's really no reason for it, but it's just because we can't see what's down there. So obviously, yeah, it's going to be freaky stuff in the darkness, but the conscious mind, them saying it is the more horrifying aspect rather than the unconscious. Maybe it has to do that they're trying to say... Sorry, I'm rambling right now. That we create our own horror consciously. That the stuff we go through in our waking life, we're creating our own misfortune and not necessarily horror, but our own discomfort in life, I should say, maybe.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to think about it. Another thing it could be is, I mean, you know, we have the subconscious, and that has its own thoughts, but the conscious mind is what makes people do the things that they do, and sometimes it's horrible and terrifying stuff that people do.
Oh no, and absolutely.
That's not the subconscious doing that. That's the person, that's the conscious being.
At least if the ego is working properly at the end of the day. If we're going to go into the Freudian sense, if the id or the shadow in the Jungian sense is the basement in this analogy, then the bedroom would be the ego, which is supposed to regulate between your unconscious tendencies, your own animalistic, I want that, I'm hungry, let's go eat, instincts, versus the superego, which is your sense of morality. So that'll be like if there's a law there, if it's a personal morality, something your teacher taught you, something your religion or theology or government taught you. So the ego is supposed to regulate between that, because obviously you don't want to engage only in your unconscious needs, because that's illegal in pretty much everywhere. But you also don't want to mindlessly follow something to the point where it harms you either. And that's and so I think that's where they're trying to make the conscious mind, the ego, is to regulate between this and that. And if that ego's not working properly, Yeah, you can create your own horror pretty quickly.
Yep.
But, yeah, so, when we get to the end of Act 3, I should say, is that when we end up in the basement and it starts to swallow you for real? I think that's where Act 3 ends.
Yep, that's the basement scene.
Oh boy, yeah, and everything just turns red, you got little strands, and it looked right out of Dr. Lobato's labyrinth right there. He would feel right at home in this place.
Oh yeah, and like the teeth start emerging from the floor and the ceiling, and the voice from the cassette player gets really loud and talks. You know, your job was to listen, but at every turn you have poked and you have prodded. But here's the thing: when a house is both hungry and awake, every room becomes a mouth.
Chomp.
Yep, and it's like that. The thing I love about that is the closest thing we get to a jump scare in this entire game.
Yeah, because there really isn't any other than, like, I think, other than that, the most disconcerting thing for me was, Act 3, in one of the bedrooms, there's a recording that turns on, and it's just someone, like, I don't want to say screaming, but it's just a really disconcerting noise that never stops. And I was going into the other bedroom on the other side of the wall, and it started up again because I got too close to the geographic center of it. So I'm just constantly hearing that out of nowhere. I'm like, oh god, stop that. Please, don't. I don't know, but yeah, that mouth scene, ugh. Gross. And I'm curious if the point they were trying to make with this is there are no real demons hiding in the shadows of this place. The monster, so to speak, is something that is not imaginary. It's something we experience every day. We're sitting inside of it right now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm sitting in my office, you're sitting in the closet. But it's something we literally look at and see every day, and it's a symbol that's so powerful in the collective unconscious that it's not a monster like we say, oh, you're afraid of a dragon or afraid of a dinosaur. Yeah, but you're never gonna actually see that. Where the house, yeah, you see it every day.
Yeah, and there was, you know, back before I moved out here for college, I lived with my parents still, and they have an unfinished basement, a lot like the one in the game. And you know, sometimes I would go in there, especially at night, because that's where they kept all the good snacks.
Gotcha.
And my brain would just be like, remember anatomy? I'm like, thanks, brain. I definitely needed that right now.
Shut up, brain. That's horrible. Yeah, I used to have to go through them all the time for work. Because we don't have a lot over here in California, but when I was doing work back east, like New York, Illinois, and places like that, there was basements everywhere, and our guys had to go down there all the frickin' time. And when they're unfinished like that, it's just weird. It's like a dusty, musty, and I'm curious if the smell has something to do with it too, because exposed framework definitely has a certain scent to it that's a different feel than when everything's drywalled over. I don't know.
Yeah, that definitely. That might be part of it. I think part of it is, you know, there's the phenomena of liminal spaces. That's a big thing on Reddit, but liminal is kind of transitionary, and usually it's, you know, the liminal space photos are usually showing places that, you know, usually have people, but they don't right now. So it's, you know, like an arcade after closing, or a recently abandoned house, or something like that. I guess the unfinished basement kind of has a similar vibe. It's like, you know, people were here, people were building this, and then they stopped partway through for whatever reason. If they're gonna come back later to finish, who knows?
Yeah, and it just has that sense of abandonment, which is its own sort of depressing, which they get into later when we get to the final scene here. But maybe it's just me, because part of my job is I used to do work for Bank of America for real estate-owned properties that have been vacant for 5-10 years, for example, and my job was basically helping to keep them maintained until they can find a seller. So I'm used to walking inside of vacant houses, and a lot of the times, people just up and left, and they left everything they owned there. So you're literally walking through kind of like a graveyard of someone's life. It's a really odd experience.
I bet.
But, let's get back over here. So after the basement finally chomps down on us, we awaken, and I believe this is one of 4 random scenes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it's 4.
4, because I'm aware of 2 of them. The one I got was, I think we were still in the basement, and everything was just super red, and I was kind of wandering around there. The other one I saw, because I watched Markiplier's playthrough today just to refresh myself, and get someone else's perspective, is he got one where you're walking the city streets toward the house at the end of the roadway.
Yeah, that's the one I got when I played it on Halloween.
Oh, we played it on Halloween?
I played it on Halloween at like 3 in the morning.
Why would you do that?
I was too scared to do it myself. I streamed it to a few friends on Discord so they could talk me through it.
Like, you got this, Ray, you got this.
Yep.
So, do you know what the other two are? I haven't really looked and watched any of the scenes yet.
Yes, there's one where you're wandering streets and it's kind of a construction site surrounding the house, and then there's one where you're like on top of this giant labyrinth, like on top of the walls.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of you walk around through there, and you can look down at one point and you see the house.
Is this... Sorry, in terms of the construction, I'm just trying to spitball and see if there's any deeper meaning behind them. Would this be a construction of the house itself? Like, I haven't seen the scene, but is it possible that you're seeing the house in different stages of its lifespan?
Maybe. It's been a little while since I watched all the endings, but I can find a video to send to you so you can see it too.
Sure.
But yeah, it might be. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the house itself looks more or less finished, but everything around it is kind of vacant except for all the construction equipment. So it's like this one house, an area that's like, I don't know if it's expanding and they're building more houses. Maybe the others got torn down and this is the only one they're keeping. I don't know. I'd have to watch it again, and yeah, I'll find that to send to you.
Cool. I appreciate it. Yeah, I can only imagine that each of these is intended to be something. It's not just random. Everything in this game seems very deliberate, so I doubt that there's no meaning behind each one. But so yeah, that's that. We get inside, and or whatever ending you get, then we end up with in the basement, laying down, with a final tape recorder playing, and it's basically giving the most depressing anthropomorphization of a inanimate structure that you can imagine. You want to detail that one? The last voice?
Yeah, so it starts talking about, there's a house and it's built and its purpose is to be lived in, but then people abandoned it. They just up and left it to rot, and it's angry. It's thinking to itself, what did I do wrong? And at one point it mentions that it may invent ghosts to walk its halls. That's one of the interpretations of what the player character is that they're one of these figments of the house's imagination. But yeah, the house is just, it's pissed at humanity for bringing it into existence and then leaving it to rot. And it's like there's, during Act 3 when you turn on the TV, it says, "You never came back." Stuff like that.
Like, I just got a weird comparison when I was listening to that scene. And regardless of anyone's personal beliefs, we can always find something to be a stand-in for this. But our nature's creator, so to speak. Part of the human condition is trying to figure out why we were created and why that creator, whatever you want to use in there, abandoned humanity as well. And we have that lack of meaning in our lives. Like, whether that be a deity, or whether that be our like nature's creator, if you want to look like a Mother Earth, or our parents, for example, that'd be a more standard one. But just trying to muddle through and without knowing what any sort of meaning is. And for those who do have religious tendencies, we're created, but where are you now? I just got the comparison between the house and, I guess from the house's perspective, the people who built it is their creator / god / whatever you want to use as the stand-in there.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's just odd to think about anybody, or just maybe depressing to think about anybody who's questioning their purpose. Like the house's point in existing is to be lived in, and when you don't take away that basic meaning, well, what am I at that point? I'm here, but that's it.
Yep, and it's just it's sad. It's a depressing, very depressing final monologue.
I mean, like, I've seen some experiments that, like, I have to remember, I don't remember where exactly it was from, but there's a robotics lab that was doing some work on artificial intelligence with some robots that were, like, kind of designed like insects. And they set them out into this wide open area with obstacles all around, so things they had to climb over or, like, pull themselves up, or stairs and steps and stuff like that, and the machines couldn't figure out how to get through it. It would just, like, hit a wall and then just stop, and it couldn't find a way to get through it. And what they did to finally get things to work is they gave the robot a goal. Okay, they programmed it. Okay, you see that red ball over there. I want you to go over there, grab the red ball, and bring it back here. Once you gave this machine with the programmed AI a goal, a purpose, it was able to solve all those obstacles with no problem. But if it didn't have that goal, it couldn't do it on its own. It's just a really weird thing to think about in terms of how artificial consciousness is designed, so to speak. Yeah. And how it applies to this story.
That is super interesting. I hadn't heard about that.
Like, I'm gonna have to find it. It was a documentary I saw years and years ago, but I need to find it again. Mm. It's just an odd thing, and look at us as people, as individuals at the end of the day. One of the things that troubles us the most is a lack of meaning, and once we find that, we latch onto it and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and it gives me purpose, and now I'm happy. Mm-hmm. Before that, we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We're just kind of wandering around those empty halls, right?
Yep.
Not to get all depressing or anything, but that's kind of the theme of the game.
Yep, it very much is.
But yeah, anything else you want to mention about the game before we head off? Just what it means to you?
It's a really cool experience. I would recommend everyone go play it. It's literally $3. It's just, you know, it gives you a lot to think about. Just kind of, you know, a bit of existential crisis thrown in with body horror set in a normal suburban house with no jump scares. And it is horrifying, and I love it.
That's the thing I love about these types of ambient style of horror. Kind of like how Silent Hill wasn't 100% there, but the reason why I prefer Silent Hill to Resident Evil is it's more the atmosphere. Something doesn't necessarily have to happen to jump out at you or to see something that's horrifying for you to freak out. It's just, this is a creepy place. And the longer it goes without actually something happening, the creepier it gets. Mm-hmm. And that's just the feeling I got here, too, is that, like, really not much was happening to the first part, and the second that things start getting weird, you're like, okay, there we go. There's something here I knew, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's like that's another flavor of the nothing is scarier trope, is where there is no monster. It's just the suspense building and building, so you don't have the jump scare for that release. It keeps coming.
And by the time, like, the only release that the story gives you at the very end is just depression.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just, it's odd. It's what, like, if you take your time, it's probably, what, 40 minutes or so? Start to finish. But yeah, it's definitely one of those I'd recommend playing yourself to get that blind experience with the headphones on, with the lights off at 3 in the morning on Halloween, like some people here.
Yep.
But because there are some games where you're good watching someone else do it, but there's some like this one, and I'd always say Hellblade is another one of those where playing it yourself first is preferable than watching someone else do it. So I'd say definitely go check it out yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I guess that's gonna be it here. Just wanted to thank you for taking some time out of your evening to join us on here, and thank you so much for the recommendation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to go edit together all of the parts of it. I'll probably upload it unlisted, and I'll send you a copy before I end off so you can check it out tomorrow. I'll probably make that live in a couple weeks, but you can check it out right now.
Yeah, sounds great.
So yeah, if you have any other recommendations, I plan to do this more often with the community in general, but if you have any other recommendations, let me know, and we'll do another session.
Oh yeah, sounds great.
Alrighty, sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.
What happens to a house when it is left alone? When it becomes worn and aged? When its paint peels and its foundations begin to sink?
that goes for too long unlived in? What does it think of? What does it dream? How does it regard those creatures who built it? Brought it into existence only to abandon it when its usefulness no longer satisfies them. It may grow lonesome. It may stare for long hours into the darkness of its own empty halls and see shadows. And its heart may jump as it thinks, here's someone again, I'm not alone. And each time it is wrong, and the hurt starts over. It may haunt itself, inventing ghosts to walk its floors, making friends with its shadow puppets, laughing and whispering to itself at the end of some quiet cul-de-sac. It may grow angry. Its basement may fill with churning acid like an empty stomach, and its gorge may rise as it asks itself through clenched teeth, what did I do wrong? It may grow bitter. It may grow hungry. So hungry and so bitter that its scruples dissolve and its doors unlock themselves. While a house may hunger, it cannot starve. And so, in fever and anger and loneliness, it may simply lie in wait. Doors open. Shades drawn. Hallways empty. Hungry.